My name is Teresa Cuesta, and welcome to my presentation on digital storytelling for assignment number 2. Digital storytelling is a transmedia experience. It is multi-platform, it is experiential, and it is a constructivist approach to teaching. What is digital storytelling? Well, in its simplest form, it is the craft of employing computer-based tools to narrate stories. Computer elements that are used can include sound, video, text, games, graphics, and web publishing. So how do we use these elements to create a good digital story? It's generally accepted that there are 7 elements of digital storytelling. 1 is the point of view. What is the main point of the story and the perspective of the author? 2, a dramatic question to keep audiences involved. 3, emotional content. Evoking emotion can make stories come alive in a very personal and powerful way. 4, a gift of your voice personalizes the story. 5, music. It can convey emotion and enhance your storyline. 6, economy. Using just enough content to engage the viewer. And 7, pacing, how fast or how slow your story progresses. So what are some of the programs and tools that you can use to create a digital story? Some are Storybird, Animoto, Piclets, Inanimate Alice, Pinball, Domo Animate, and the Zimmer Twins. This is but a small sample of all the tools that you could possibly use to engage your students in digital storytelling environments. So how would we use one of these tools to create a digital storytelling learning environment for a project or a lesson in our school that would go along with the curriculum? For example, the school librarian can be working with the teachers on a science project in elementary school. They could send them first to National Geographic Kids to research their animal, in this instance the snowy owl. We can ask them to go down and find 3 facts about their animal from this website and record them. Then we could have them go to an additional website, such as the Ranger Rick website at the National Wildlife Federation, to research their snowy owl and to gather 3 more facts about their animal for a total of 6 facts. From here, we are going to go to a program to set out a thinking map. We can go to the pinball machine at BBC and go to dot dash, which will allow us to create a thinking map. We'll be able to put in our idea, snowy owl, and I will come back in a moment when it is complete. And here we are at a completed dot dash project where I have started with the snowy owl, added my bubbles, and this is where a lot of the creativity and fun comes in. Students get to make the bubbles shorter or longer in relation to their main idea of what they think is most important. They can also change the colors using the color wheel on the right. And when they are finished, they can save and download this image to use in their presentation. So this could be the final project, all the information gathered to be put into the PowerPoint presentation I'm showing you here. So we have snowy owls, they've downloaded their information, they've downloaded photographs if they like, and they've worked on their thinking map, which they show their flow of ideas, and then they can present some facts in a fun and interesting way. They're engaged. They get to talk about with their partner what they want to put where, what is the flow of ideas they want to present. We can show things from their thinking maps and give more detail about the fact they're not nocturnal, other things that they are known by, how they are protective creatures. And we can even throw in a fun idea of maybe they want to say why they chose that animal in the first place. This presentation and all the information gathering up to it has promoted a lot of peer discussion with a partner or maybe with the class, different ideas of transmedia and how they're going to put their ideas together, and finally the flow of information, how it's being presented to the rest of their class. And even our younger students can use the audio recording to make it a richer presentation for themselves and for their peers. So let's go back to my digital storytelling desk. What are some of the alternate terms that we might find with digital storytelling? You can also find it called transmedia narrative, multi-platform storytelling, digital memoirs, or essays. Whatever terminology is used, key elements is that the media is interactive and participatory. One of the leading scholars in the field of digital storytelling is Dr. Annette Lamb. She talks about transmedia storytelling And she explains that it is technology-rich and that it is a fluid environment. Dr. Annette Lamb is a senior lecturer of Library and Information Science at Indiana University. Dr. Lamb talks about fluid environments in digital storytelling. She explores how it changes students' mode of learning from passive to active. As we saw with the Snowy Owl research, the students are engaged and extremely active in their knowledge and their learning process. They become critical users of the transmedia technology, and they have deeper knowledge through construction and conveyance of complex and meaningful digital involvement. Dr. Lamb goes on to tell us that digital storytelling is non-linear. It is participatory. Elements can involve anything from print, maps, web-based tools, apps, cell phone calls, social media, and animation. They can be biographical, it can be fiction, it can be non-fiction, as in our Snowy Owl example. It must be interactive media, have social elements, and it can often include gaming elements. Transmedia is a synergy between the elements of digital or transmedia storytelling. So for instance, if the elements are gaming elements, storytelling elements, social elements, and interactive media elements, each student that is involved in creating the digital story will be more proficient or more interested in one of these elements. And when each student comes together and immerses themselves in the digital storytelling environment, all of their strengths will cause a synergistic effect to create a rich digital storytelling environment. Dr. Lamb also has great ideas for classroom use to enhance the curriculum by conducting electronic reading workshops, writing in electronic journals, utilizing online discussions, teaching publishing online, providing learning games for all different parts of the curricula, including math, science, and literacy, using immersive interaction, like cause and effect relationships, and using even original texts of great literature, maps, newspapers, comics, artifacts, image generators, and infographics. Here's an example that Dr. Lamb gives for younger students. For the young ones, you really need to keep the information manageable, as in our Snowy Owl example. The sheer amount of options can be overwhelming. You have to relate a structured, specific environment. Having a rubric to go along with the Snowy Owl example would be a great way for students to gauge and self-assess as they go along, and make sure that they are in a safe, experiential, creative, and shareable environment. Dr. Lamb gives an example of this about listening to a story of Johnny Appleseed, choosing 3 pages to read from a different website, making a chart with 5 facts found in those pages, reading about the difference between fact and fiction regarding the story, and then actually writing a letter to a friend about what you've learned, encompassing all different structures and all different platforms to create a great digital story environment. For older students, you can add even more elements and give them more choices. This means allowing them to mash up those elements to give them a lot of choices in expressing themselves. And although we do want to allow our older students a lot of freedom of choice to do these mashing up of ideas, we want to make sure that they're still being done in a meaningful and enhancing way according to the lesson, according to the curriculum, for what's being taught. Some transmedia environments from Dr. Lamb's lecture Transmedia Time, which you can find on YouTube, are about storytelling. For example, Pottermore and the 39 Clues. Some of these great environments are based on literature that kids love and are reading right now. She also tells us about maps, places to go for comic creation, additional fun stuff, generators such as Wordle, which we've seen used in the class. These are all creative, sharing, interactive ideas. Dr. Lamb suggests that you use these to add interest and depth to their storytelling. Dr. Lamb tells us that transmedia storytelling is not just about teaching English. It is not about books or libraries. It is not a one-dimensional idea. Transmedia storytelling actually is multidisciplinary. It may be any subject from advanced physics to mathematics. It is a social, immersive, and participatory environment. So what are some of the more important research findings about digital storytelling? If we look at how students use digital storytelling, ones that do are engaged with collaborating with their peers, they organize information in more interesting and understandable ways, and they achieve higher order thinking with that collection, abstraction, and organizing of information. They can also develop transliteracy skills, especially students who are English language learners. The research also tells us that digital storytelling supports constructivist, inquiry-based, and project-based learning. It is a multi-sense involvement, has such as tactile, visual, and audio. It promotes literacy across platforms, and there are self-assessments throughout the process. Some of the research even showed that there was spontaneous sharing and evaluation between peers during the process just by chatting about it while they were working next to each other on the computers, and that it supports collaboration and communication among peers. Some of the concerns raised by research were, was it as cost-effective as other learning methods? Technology can be expensive. Access to the internet can be expensive. So how can it be modified to help students with disabilities? Students who have sensory issues, auditory, speaking disabilities, and fine motor skill issues might have trouble with this kind of technology. Another issue was that student motivation, enjoyment, and engagement can be very difficult to define, control, and measure. And lastly, does narration need to be an element of any digital storytelling in any subject? Just as a brief overview about the research findings, there's a more complete synthesis in the document sharing file for this assignment. But to let you know that the research findings here were from elementary students through college students where digital storytelling was involved. It involved urban and rural students in the U.S., and it involved international studies from Tanzania, Singapore, and Indonesia, to name a few. And the subject matter ranged from younger student research projects to finance to very pressing and personal health issues in third world countries. So let's go back one more time to our desktop. Let's take a look at Dr. Rebecca Morris's model for digital storytelling for schools and school libraries. This is her conceptual model of student engagement in digital storytelling in school libraries and in the classroom. In this model, the digital storytelling has an engagement part, and there's a circular element between viewing and creating that shows that self-assessment is a continuous process while the student is both viewing, they're both the audience of their product, and they're the creator of their product at the same time. Their actions and emotions are also fed into the digital story, creating their final product. The learning is the content knowledge and technology skills that have gone into producing the digital story. And involved in that are the similar experiences the students have had before, including other media production and gaming. Next steps is the continuation of the evaluative process where they go back and revise or start a new digital story. So this is a conceptual model by Dr. Rebecca Morris, which I hope explains some of the students' roles in creating the digital story. I hope you've learned a bit more about digital storytelling and have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for watching.